Hey guys, Political Junkie 2414 here, and welcome to my second to last ever prediction for the 2022 United States Senate elections. We are now just 7 days away from the midterm elections on November 8th. It's November 1st right now. When I'm recording this, hope you guys had a great happy Halloween. I can't believe that we've made it this far. It's been a long, these elections have been a long time coming. And yeah, let's just get right into it. I'll let you guys know that I'm making my final update for these prediction for the Senate elections on either the 7th or the 8th, so next Monday or Tuesday. Really depends on how much stuff is going on in my personal life. But if there aren't any updates after my final prediction, I will let you guys know via a screenshot that I will post on a community post so you guys can see my final prediction, but I hope that that won't be necessary. And yeah, but I won't be doing like any election night live streams. I'm just going to be watching it by myself. And yeah, let's just get right into it. Hope you guys are having a great day. And yeah, it is we own this is the second to last time I will be talking to you guys about these Senate elections ever. I will be making some more individual videos throughout the next couple of days on some of these races because I'm running out of time. But yeah, besides that, yeah, let's get right into my second to last prediction for these elections. So on the generic ballot, since my last prediction, Republicans have taken a lead of about 1 point. Democrats have fallen a little bit on the generic ballot. The Senate is really, really tight right now. But the generic ballot has gotten a little bit better for Democrats. We've seen it's pretty much like a statistical tie right now. Morning console poll has it even. Signal has it Republican plus free. So there's a slight advantage for the GOP, but there are polls that show Democrats up. It's very, very close. I do think Republicans will win the popular vote, and they probably will win the House. I am not quite so sure about the Senate, but it's pretty much a total toss up. But yeah, you guys will see when I get in. When you see my prediction right now. So yeah, so 538 has finally, after months on end of having Democrats in the lead, um, they have moved Republicans back into the advantage. They have the GOP with a 52 percent chance of victory, with Democrats at 48%, pretty much a statistical tie. And I pretty much agree with that. I think that that's pretty a pretty fair representation of where we are right now. And yeah. So let's get started with filling out the safe states. Don't really need to talk too much about these, which are going to go to either party by over 15 percentage points. These are very, very, solid states for each incumbent party. For Alaska, I want to point out, I do believe Lisa Murkowski is going to win her reelection. Alaska's a very independent state, not very Trumpy at all. It's still the GOP state, and it voted for Trump, but Murkowski survived a write-in, survived a primary challenger in 2010 when she ran as a write-in candidate. If she could do that back in 2010, she can absolutely beat Kelly Shabaka this year. And yeah, Alaskans clearly do not like Trump Republicans. Just ask Sarah Palin. She's probably going to lose that House election to Mary Peltola. Murkowski actually, I think, recently endorsed Peltola, and so yeah, there's some interesting stuff going on there, but she's going to probably win her reelection. I don't really have much confidence in Kelly Shabaka's ability to win anymore. And I haven't really felt that way for a long time. And yeah, Lisa Murkowski is going to come back to the Senate, and yeah. We also have the two Oklahoma special elections. Jim Inhofe is resigning from his seat. That's why you see a circle right here that is, indicative of two elections in Oklahoma. The special election will probably be closer than the regular election, but it's still going to go to the GOP by an overwhelming margin nonetheless. Kansas and the Dakotas are going to be very solid. Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, South Carolina, Kentucky, and Indiana. So yeah, so that is all of the safe states. Now we're going to get into the likely states, or into the likely lean and tilt states. We have 12 remaining states that are not, some of which are not going to be super competitive, others are going to be highly competitive, but they are the only states that are not safe. Many of them are, not super competitive, though. And so we're going to start off with the likely Democratic states, or the likely states in general, which are going to go to either party by over 5 to 15 points. This is really the largest gap, for any margin group, in this. Used in political forecasting. A lot of these likely states are very, very close to safe. Some of them are really close to lean. It really just depends. And yeah, so we're going to start off. The first likely state is for the Democrats. It is the state of Washington. I'm pretty confident Patty Murray is going to win at this point. I mean, it's Washington. I really don't see how Tiffany Smiley can win in this deep blue state. I understand that Murray had a very competitive race back in 2010, and but she even outperformed her polling aggregate then. She had a very good challenger, and while I do think that she will win by under 15 points, I do still expect the margin to be larger than what the polls are suggesting. Right now, she's only up by it's it's pretty small, honestly. It's pretty shocking. She's only up by 6 points. She's not even at 50% of the vote anymore. But a lot of these are Republican internals. The Trafalgar Group has Murray only up by one. That is in no way going to happen. I do think that the race in like a best case scenario for the GOP is lean, like it's a 4 point victory, but I really don't see that happening anyway. That would be a massive red wave, and I'd be very stunned if Patty Murray lost this race. We're still talking about Washington here. The second likely Democratic state is the state of Colorado. Joe O'Dea is a good candidate for the GOP. A very I guess you could say taboo kind of Republican. He's really interesting. Supports abortion rights, gay marriage. He's been really hammering Michael Bennet, the incumbent Democrat, on inflation issues. Really been tying him to President Biden. O'Dea is also a very anti-Trump kind of Republican. He's been called out recently by Donald Trump, who's called him, I think, an idiot. So that's not going to help him with the Trump base, but he's going to do fairly well with moderates. And I do think that, but I still do think that, we're talking about a state that's as left trending as Colorado. And polls actually tend to underestimate Democrats here, not nearly by as much as, say, Nevada. But Bennett has, won in red wave years before. He was supposed to lose his Senate race in 2010. He ended up winning it by about 2 points. In 2022, even if it is a red wave, which I do believe it will be like a slight red wave, particularly in the House, I still, Colorado still state that Biden won by double digits. It's increasingly left trending in Odea. He might do a little bit better. He'll do, a lot better than Trump, I'd say, in the suburban areas, but the rural areas are not going to be too promising for him, although I don't think that's going to make much of a difference anyway. Trump did very well in the rural areas in 2020, and he got blown out in the state by 14 points. So now we're going to get into the likely Republican states, quite a few here. We're going to start off with the state of Florida down here. The early voting numbers look really bad for Democrats here. Marco Rubio was always going to win his reelection. Val Demings is a strong candidate, but she's simply running in the wrong state at the wrong time. She's running in a state that where polling constantly underestimates Republicans, and it is a very right trending state. Marco Rubio is a very strong incumbent, and I do think that he's probably going to win this race by over 10 percentage points, but it'll be under 15. I do expect Ron DeSantis to do slightly better than Rubio because Charlie Crist is a worse Democratic candidate than Val Demings for minority voters, but I still do think, Democrats, haven't really been targeting Florida this year. I've always had Florida as a likely red state, but it's really safe by probability. It's just by margin, I doubt that it's going to be over 15 percentage points. There was a time when I considered moving it down to lean when it looked like Rubio was, possibly in jeopardy of losing this race, but I never ended up doing that, and it's pretty clear to me now that Florida is going to go red. It's always been that way. The next likely state we have is the state of Iowa. Chuck Grassley, while he has won by extremely large margins in the past, he's seen his his Democratic challengers put up stronger fights against him in recent years. This will probably be his closest election since his initial one in 1980 when he defeated the incumbent Democrat Chet Culver, I think is his name or was his name, by 8 percentage points. He's been in the Senate since 1980, since Ronald Reagan was elected, and his age does seem to be a pretty concern. Seems to be a pretty big concern for voters. Iowa polls, yes, do tend to underestimate Republicans by quite a bit, but Michael Franken, as a Democrat, has been running a really strong campaign against Grassley, but he's really a sacrificial lamb. I really wish that Iowa could go blue, but the days of blue Iowa are long, long gone. Seltzer and Co. did put out, which is a very accurate pollster in Iowa, the most accurate pollster, I think, in the country, according to 538. They only showed Chuck Grassley up by three, but they're not perfect. They're very accurate, but I doubt that Grassley is going to win by that little. They've, had their misses before, and I do believe he's going to win by high single digits to low double digits. The next likely state we have is the state of Ohio. JD Vance is a really poor GOP nominee, you know, but at the same time, Tim Ryan, well, he is a strong candidate for the Democratic Party, and I never thought that he wasn't you know, he's probably going to outperform Joe Biden. Ohio's polls are just atrocious, even in midterm years. I doubt that they will miss by as much as they did in 2020. But Vance is just really relying on the rightward trend of Ohio to boost him to victory. He's still a Republican, and if Tim Ryan does win this race, which I don't think it's going to, but if he does, there would be two Democrats on the ballot or in the Senate from the state of Ohio, the ever being Sherrod Brown. And yes, Brown did win his reelection in 2018, but he's a very different type of Democrat, a very different type of Democrat. I don't necessarily think Tim Ryan is, I don't think that JD Vance is, this outstanding candidate. I don't think that at all. I think that, the reason why this is likely is because, he's taken a bit, not a surge in the polls, but he's definitely done a lot better and when you're a Republican up in Ohio, that pretty much means that you're guaranteed to win. Tim Ryan, Democrats really fought hard for this race. They're still fighting really hard for it, and I think Ryan's gonna only lose by around 5 or 6 points, better than Joe Biden, but still, a loss but it's still a likely margin for JD Vance in this race, and he will become the next U.S. senator from Ohio. And the final likely state, this is a first for me, this is the state of Wisconsin. Now, Ron Johnson looked like he was in a pretty bad position just a couple of months ago when Trafalgar showed him down, to Mandela Barnes. It was a pretty big shocker. But since then, national Republicans have really started to help Johnson attack Barnes. They've scapegoated him as this super progressive guy. And while Ron Johnson, is a very unpopular incumbent, he has, been able to outperform expectations before. He did so in 2016, not in 2010. I don't understand why right wingers like to push this notion that Ron Johnson was not supposed to win in 2010 either. He was. He actually underperformed his polling data, but that's besides the point. Wisconsin polls are not too great. They're a lot better in midterm years than they are in presidential years. Um, but Johnson's already at 50%. In the polling aggregate, it's looking really bad for Barnes right now. And yeah, the only polls that show him ahead are his own campaign polls and registered voter polls, which are not the most reliable. And Ron Johnson just looks like he's probably going to win by over 5 points at this point. I could see it being under what am I saying? It's obviously going to be under 15. That'd be crazy. Um, I could see it being under five still, but I do think that Republicans have built up enough of a lead in Wisconsin that I am going to consider it a likely GOP state. So now we have the remaining six toss-up races. These are going to be the closest Senate races of the year. We've got New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. And these are going to be decided by lean to tilt margins. These are the very competitive states. We're going to start off with the lean states, of which there are just two, one for the for the Democrats and one for the Republicans. Lean states are these are the highly competitive states, but they are, not some of them can I consider some lean states toss-ups, but in the general scheme of things, they, they're highly competitive, a lot more so than likely, but they are still, going to be they're going to be decided by between 1 and 5 points. And so, they could be very, very close to tilt and very close, and I could even consider some of them toss-ups, but at the same time, some of them I do not consider toss-ups. So for the lean Democratic state, it is the state of New Hampshire. This is a change from last time. I had it as likely. National Republicans have finally have decided to get back into the race. Don Bolduc has really narrowed this race up against Maggie Hassan. That being said, I still expect Democrats to win this race. New Hampshire's polls, while they were a little wonky in 2020, we have to remember that 2020 was a very unusual year for polling misses. Nevada, even Nevada in that year, 2 years ago, had a Democratic bias in its polls when it's usually the opposite. But Hassan definitely is struggling against Bolduc. In fact, unlike Blake Masters, Bolduc has actually led in a poll by St. Anselm College, which I believe is a pretty accurate pollster in New Hampshire. But considering that Hassan is an electoral giant who's won in red wave years before, she defeated Kelly Ayotte, a very strong Republican incumbent, and the fact that, New Hampshire's polls aren't usually that bad, I do think that she's going to win by, 3 or 4 points at the end of the day. It doesn't really, surprise me that New Hampshire is getting this close. I, very much underestimated Don Bolduc as a candidate. But it is, New Hampshire. It's a very swingy state, but it usually does pull through for the Democrats, and I do believe it's going to do that once again. And the one lean Republican state is North Carolina. I still believe that Ted Budd is a very is I still believe Ted Budd is very much the favorite, but I'm keeping it out of likely for now because I do think that Sherry Beasley does still have a fairly reasonable shot at victory. I do think, that considering that she can probably boost black turnout numbers, that could really help her. Bud is not necessarily the best candidate for the rural areas. He might have some trouble in the suburbs with his abortion comments, but it's still North Carolina. 99% of the time, it does go to the Republican Party, and I do think it's going to do so. Again, Beasley is probably going to underperform her 2020 Supreme Court race when she only lost by 3,000 or so votes. I do believe, she's going to lose by less than five. I could see it becoming likely Republican by election day, but I do think, Democrats tend to do better in a down ballot, or, not down ballot because it's more, I mean, I guess it is kind of down ballot, but Democrats in North Carolina tend to do better when the races aren't quite nationalized. North Carolina has been a state that's been pretty much neglected by both parties, and I think that that's really helped Sherry Beasley, but I still, considering the circumstances of this year and the circumstances of the state we're working with, I still believe that Ted Budd will be the next U.S. Senator from North Carolina. So now we have the fourth. Oh wait, we have actually forgot about this. We have another lean GOP state, and yeah, this is an addition. This is a first for me. I'm gonna move Nevada into the lean GOP column. Now I know I'm gonna get a lot of backlash for this. But I do think Adam Laxalt is, I do believe that Catherine Cortez Masto has a very good shot at victory. I would not be surprised at all if she does win. And I was actually, I was until today, I was actually very bullish. I had this, feeling that I was just going to put Nevada as a pure toss up, but Emerson College, which is insanely accurate in Nevada. I've been waiting for this poll forever. The Emerson poll before the election comes out with Laxalt ahead by 5 points, against Cortez Masto and at 51% of the vote. And so, I do believe that, this race is going to be closer than the governor's race. I think Joe Lombardo is going to have a pretty decisive victory over Sisolak. But it's not going to be, it's not going to be like likely Republican, like some people are saying. And Laxalt, I do think, does still have a shot to lose this race. Absolutely. It's Nevada. It's a state where it's really been a fool's gold for Republicans recently, throughout the last decade. But I do think that while Cortez Masto is very strong with Hispanic voters, the economy in Nevada is just really being hit hard. And, I would be a fool not to, not to recognize that Emerson knows what they're talking about when it comes down to Nevada. If you look at the history of the pollster, I'll show you guys. Go back to Nevada. They actually underestimated Biden. They said he won by 1.7%. He won by 2.4. And you go back to 2018 with Nevada. You can see where's the Senate race. Senate race. Give me a second. But the Senate race they were they were very accurate in Nevada. I guess I can't find it, but basically they said Jackie Rosen was going to win by 4 points. She won by 5, and I don't think Laxalt's going to win by 5 or 4. I think he's going to win by like 2 or something like that. I do think that Vegas is looking, Clark County is looking pretty good for Cortez Masto right now. But I do think Laxalt's going to do pretty well in the suburbs, and Nevada has had a pretty, did have a pretty noticeable shift among Hispanics. I understand that Cortez Masto, is a Hispanic woman, or a woman, a woman of Latino. She's the first Latina in the U.S. Senate, and so it'd be kind of surprising, if she does so poorly with Hispanics. I don't think she really will, but it's not, something about her specifically. It's just the fact that they're trending very much rightward. She did not do very well in Northern Nevada. I think that Washoe is going to go to Laxalt by about 3 points or so, and I do think that he's going to narrow up Clark County slightly. The early voting for Democrats in Nevada is looking all right, but I do think that right now, with that Emerson poll out, and all the factors going into the economy, the fact that abortion hasn't really hurt Laxalt or Lombardo, it really does seem like that they are favorites in Nevada, and it looks like Nevada is going to have a Republican senator and a Republican governor once again. So now we've got the three final states: Arizona, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. All of these states are like the true toss-up states. But some are obviously closer than others. These are the tilt states. They're obviously not that much closer than each other. But they're going to be decided by under 1 percentage point. And yeah, I could really see them going either way. So we're gonna start off with the tilt Democratic states. First, I have the state of Arizona. This is a change. I still think that Mark Kelly is the favorite in Arizona. And I do understand the polls in the state do sometimes underestimate Democratic support, but Blake Masters has significantly narrowed the gap. However, I am not putting him as the favorite, and I think it'd be naive to do so, at least right now, considering the fact that he still is not leading in Republican internals. He's still down in Wick. He's down in Trafalgar, and we, unlike Dr. Oz, he really hasn't seen, in Pennsylvania, he hasn't really seen this major surge recently. But I do think, considering Mark Kelly's underperformance of his polls in 2020, I know that that's not a very good year to compare polls to. But I do, I want to be cautious. I do think the Masters does have a chance at victory. I never doubted that he did. He's a Republican in the state of Arizona, very ancestrally a GOP state. But I still think that he is going to lose. I think Mark Kelly is popular enough and strong enough of an incumbent to hold on. And yeah, I think the Masters is going to run behind Kerry Lake. I don't think he's going to get pulled over the finish line. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does win or if, he loses by a lean margin. But right now, I think I'm most comfortable characterizing Arizona as a tilt Democratic state. Second tilt state for the Democrats is the state of Georgia. And the reason I'm doing this is because, there is a little bit of, some talk on the election community about possibly Georgia being affected by the enthusiasm fast factor. If Republicans do win the Senate outright in November and Georgia advances to a runoff, that would hurt Democrats' chances. It would make voters less motivated to vote. I've also heard, the argument that Stacey Abrams losing outright in November would, really de what's the word, demoralize black voters. But we have to remember that Herschel Walker is not a very good candidate for the suburbs. We have to remember that the rural areas are, I think, we're not going to see super great turnout from the rural areas from Georgia. I think Herschel has definitely made an improvement recently. He's only down by 1 point in the polls, but Georgia's polls are insanely accurate. seeing all of these Republican internals, they show him back up again. That it was really bad earlier this month when they all had him down, and I had Georgia's lean D. I said, I'm pretty sure that I think there's a very good chance Warnock just wins outright. And I still think that he very well could. I do think, that a lot of these, polls like Trafalgar and Insider Advantage, they all overestimated Trump by quite a bit in Georgia in 2020. They all said he'd win the state. And so, I do think that there's a chance Warnock wins on election day, but I just want to be careful and, account for the enthusiasm factor. I do think Walker, still has a pathway to victory, but that would involve the black vote going down significantly. And I don't necessarily think that the enthusiasm factor is going to be too, indicative of the race. In 2008, we had a runoff in Georgia. It was another competitive Senate election, and Saxby Chambliss, despite him only narrowly winning on election day and being forced into a runoff by the Democrat Jim Martin, he won by almost 15 points. And I get it. Obama lost Georgia, but Martin did better than Obama statewide in November. And Democrats, had a very good year in the Senate. They flipped Alaska. They had, flipped Oregon. That was a flip. They flipped North Carolina. They flipped Virginia, New Mexico, Colorado. They even flipped Minnesota, which was held by a Republican then. South Dakota was, I mean, it was still a very blue state then, but it was a very close race. Um, South Dakota was safe blue, and Montana was safe blue. Arkansas and Louisiana were blue. It was just a very good year for the Democrats, but they somehow weren't doing too well in Georgia. And I do think that there's a lot of factors going into it. Georgia was not nearly as blue back then as it is now, and I do think Georgia is a very racially polarized state, and I get that's the argument for Walker and for there not being a split ticket in Georgia. But even though lots changed in 6 years, we have to remember that Johnny Isaacson very much outperformed Trump in the Atlanta suburbs by quite a bit. I think Brian Kemp's going to do a similar thing. But I do think that Walker is still the underdog in the Georgia Senate race. And yeah, that is it for Georgia. I am I am all raspy. Hold on, give me a second. My voice is getting all cracky. All right. Well, we have one last state left to cover, and that's Pennsylvania. Let's talk about the debate. I obviously think that Oz won. I think that that's pretty clear that Oz is the favorite in this race. And I mean he's the favorite. He was favored to win the debate from the beginning. And if you haven't guessed, I'm still putting it as tilt R. But John Fetterman, I think, did, luck out a little bit. I don't think he did quite as bad as some people are saying he did. He did not do great, that's for sure. He did honestly pretty poor, but he did well for what he was given. And I do think that Oz kind of, ran himself into a corner, put himself in a corner with a couple of things with that comment about abortion being, um, the issue of abortion should involve local politicians, which, it's not really making yourself look like a moderate. I obviously don't think that Oz is a moderate, but I still do think generally he did make himself look like he was centrist in that debate. He's garnered a lot of the Republican base behind him. John Fetterman's campaign is very much still in this race. I could still see it. Flipping blue, I had it flipping blue up until recently, but I still think that if you had to make me bet on a winner today, I'd say Oz very narrowly by the skin of his teeth wins. So for the final map, we have 51 Republicans and 49 Democrats. Republicans hold on to all of their seats. They hold on to Wisconsin, in some of the competitive races. They hold on to their competitive seats in Wisconsin, Ohio, Iowa, Florida, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, while Democrats hold on to Arizona, Georgia, New Hampshire, Colorado, and I guess you can say Washington's kind of competitive. And Republicans also flip the state of Nevada, which gives them a net gain of one, which gives them a 1 seat majority. It does allow them to win the Senate majority since they do not lose any seats, so there's no cancellation like there was like there would be if Pennsylvania was going blue. So yeah, so Republicans net a gain of one in the Senate. This could very well change. I could very well be wrong, especially about Pennsylvania and Nevada. This is where I think the races stand today. And so, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Share the video, turn on notifications so you don't miss another one. Check out my main channel, Interactor127, and my second channel, and my comrades channel, Growling Zeus 666. Again, thank you guys so much for watching this video. And yeah, we are getting really close to the midterms. I will be making more videos. There will be more videos coming soon. There's a final house prediction coming soon. My last governor's prediction video will be out, I think, on the 6th. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. And I'll be making, obviously more videos soon on the Senate races in Pennsylvania, Georgia, and some of the governor's races as well. I'll be going back to Wisconsin for talking about the governor's race there. Anyways, I'm rambling, so yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time when I talk about all things politics. See ya.